So now let's focus on the north. Let's look at the history that the biblical text tells us about the north. Let's make some corrections and then look at how they portrayed YHVH and how they worshipped YHVH. Okay, now, according to the Bible, according to the biblical text, which is dominantly Deuteronomistic, Jeroboam was the founder of the northern kingdom of Israel. Okay. Jeroboam revolts. His revolt against King Solomon, followed by his fleeing to Egypt. They are documented in 1 Kings chapters 12. After unsuccessfully negotiating with Rehoboam, who was the son and successor of Solomon, he established a kingdom among the northern tribes. This included 2 sanctuaries, as Mr. Drew just mentioned, one at Bethel and then the other at Dan, respectively, where bull statues representing the God who led the Israelites out of Egypt were set up. So, this is the history that we get from the south about the forming of the northern kingdom, who formed it, what happened, and when it was formed. 2 sanctuaries are established, one at Bethel, which is the extreme north, and then one at Dan, which is the extreme south. So Bethel and Dan means at the extreme north and extreme southern boundaries of their kingdom. Okay. I mentioned Dan. Mr. David is listening very carefully because he's asked me to do a class on Dan, which I'm going to do right after we looked at how YHVH is worshipped in Judah. Okay. What does the archaeological and historical reference tells us? Archaeology has raised questions about this narrative due to Dan likely not becoming an Israelite tribe until the 8th century. So I'll repeat that. The data that we have, archaeological diggings, evidence, tells us or shows us that Dan did not become part of Israel until the 8th century. That is very important. It was Jeroboam II who annexed Dan and then put a Yahwistic temple there. It wasn't Jeroboam the first. Let me repeat it again. The narrative that we get in the book of Kings about the formation of the northern kingdom is a bit problematic. Credit is given to Jeroboam the first for doing that. I have no issue with that. But then the temple, the sanctuaries that are set up, one in Bethel and one in Dan, which the text tells us that it was done by Rehoboam, is not accurate, because Dan does not become part of this coalition forming Israel to the 8th century. When we get to the 8th century, we're looking at Jeroboam II, not the first. Jeroboam II annexed Dan and set up a Yahwistic temple there. This is how Dan became part of the Israelite coalition. Beautiful. Let me say this and I'll move on. That is why the biblical text tells us in the blessing of Jacob that Dan will be like one of the would judge like one of the tribes of Israel. If you can go back and read the blessings given to Dan. Dan was initially wasn't part of it. Dan became part of it. Now we have to look at Dan. Who are they? Okay, the hero of Dan is who? What's his name? It starts with an S. Oh, he was a judge. Samson. The hero of Dan is Samson. Why is Samson so much into Philistine women? I'm just giving you nuggets. We'll look at all of that, and then we would see Dan. Why, and then why Dan doesn't show up in Revelations, blah, 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 blah. We would. Mr. Marvin says the Philistine women were beautiful. Okay, so to clarify, historically and archaeologically, we have an issue with the story of Dan, it's narrated in the book of Kings. But that is not the focus. The focus is the temples. Yes, a sanctuary is set up at Bethel. Yes, a sanctuary is set up at Dan, far south at Dan. We want to look at the sanctuaries and how they associated or represented YHVH. That is the goal here. Okay. We come to 1 Kings 12, where the narrative is given. This is what we read. And Jeroboam built Shechem in the mountain of Ephraim and lived there. And he went from there and built the city of Penuel. Jeroboam then said to himself, now the kingdom may return to the house of David. When this people goes up to offer sacrifices in the temple of YHVH in Jerusalem, the heart of this people would turn to their master, to Rehoboam, the king of Judah, and they shall kill me and return to Rehoboam, the king of Judah. So, according to this text, it's all political. You're a king now, you don't want your people. Religion, the temple is tied to the king. You want the dues, you want the offerings, you want the tithes, the taxes. So you cannot risk your people going to Jerusalem to worship, according to the theological narrative. The king took counsel and made 2 golden calves. And he said to them, saying, it is far for you to go up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, O Israel, that have brought you up from the land of Egypt. Awesome. So this is YHVH here. We are told that he made 2 golden calves. And these represent the deity that brought them out of Egypt. Like I said, that narrative, that account, was not witnessed by everybody in the northern kingdom. It's a Shasu account. People who were running away from Egypt. They ran away from Egypt, and they say it's the God in the south, YHVH, that helped them. And when they became part of Israel, like we've just explained, now it becomes everyone's story. But no, that is not the tradition behind the Exodus. Everybody was in Egypt and then they left. No, not at all. Okay. Yes, we do have evidence of the Shasu in Egypt, Mr. David. I can give it to you sometime. Yes, we do. 29. And he placed one in Bethel and the other he placed in Dan. And this thing became a sin, and the people went before the one even until Dan. So, it became a sin in the eyes of the person trying to push monotheism. 29. And he placed one in Bethel and the other he placed in Dan. And this thing became a sin, and the people went before the one until Dan. Sure. Let's go on. And he made the house of high places, that is, houses of altars. And he made priests of some of the people who were not of the sons of Levi. Like I said, the sons of Levi were not always priests. It is the king that is the mediator. The king can choose whoever he wants to mediate on his behalf and collect his money for him. And Jeroboam made a festival in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, like the festival which was in Judah. And he brought up offerings on the altar. He did in Bethel, to slaughter the calves which he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priest of the high places which he had made. And he brought up offerings on the altar which he had made in Bethel on the 15th day of the 18th month, in the month that he had fabricated from his heart. And he made a festival for the children of Israel, and he went up to the altar to burn incense. So, with this, if I should ask you, what was the image of YHVH in the north? Mr. Davis says a bull, and that is 100% correct. The worship of a bull in the capital of Israel, which was Samaria, is attested in the book of Hosea. I'll show you at the end of the class. According to the biblical narrative in 1 Kings 12, this same bull may have been transferred to Bethel, or there could have also been a bull in the original sanctuary. Okay, let me rephrase that. The bull is in Bethel first. Dan is taken over by Jeroboam II, annexes it, and then brings YHVH there. So you have a bull in Samaria, and then when Dan was annexed and a sanctuary was set up, another bull is put there representing YHVH. Now, what do we consider this bull? The statue of a bull found at both locations, Bethel and Dan, can either be considered as a pedestal for YHVH, or it may represent YHVH himself.
But if we use the bull they created at Mount Sinai, can we, as a reference, can we just say that it's a representation of Yah himself as opposed to either or, pedestal or Yah?
Correct. Yes, I hold, I support those who say that it is the representation of Yah himself.
Oh yeah,
Because of
that's
what we know about because of what we know about Baal.
it's because of Baal. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Of course, I was coming to the same conclusion as well too, just based on other examples in the book where the bull was being presented. But
Correct.
to see it being tossed up between a pedestal or Yah himself, that's what kind of threw me off. Like, why not just come out and say, like, they held this as a representation of Yah himself?
Correct. Which is what I think they did.
Oh, okay. No, I'm with that train of thought too as well, just based on everything that came before this.
Yep. And like you said, this is evident from archaeological data, a stele found in the museum in Paris. It's called the Louvre Museum in Paris. What do we see? Well, there we see Baal is depicted anthropomorphically holding his weapons in his hands. This is what we see, the stele. No, so this is a stele of Baal holding his weapons, thunder and lightning, in his hands, or in a form of a bull. This is how he's represented. Baal is represented as a bull, and YHVH is also a storm god. So you have Baal with his holding his weapons. His weapons are thunder and lightning. And then, not only that, we have references from Balaam, his oracle in the book of Numbers. Let me show you. This is, where is it? Let me pause here. Let me bring my. Let's read here, and you will see how it's usually difficult for. I don't know why it's difficult for people to just say this is what it is. Even Bible, and what you call it, versions of Bibles. It's like you read a certain version of a Bible and you come to realize that they have ulterior motives. They're trying to cover things up. Okay, let's read Numbers 23. Let me